Good evening and welcome to Ask the Specialists on CMU Public Television. I'm Mike Horace, and tonight we're asking the gardeners. Your questions next. Welcome again to Ask the Specialists on CMU Public Television. I'm Mike Horace, and tonight we are asking the gardeners. We'll tell you how to get involved with the program in just a moment. First, let's meet our two experts. First, from MSU Extension Services, Hal Hudson, a horticulture expert. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Mike. Glad to be here.
And we also have with us Chuck Martin from Dow Gardens, a horticulturalist there. Welcome.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks for inviting us.
Just to begin, can you two both talk a little bit about your areas of expertise? Let's start with you, Hal.
Yes, I specialize in vegetable production. I'm based out of the MSU Extension office in the Thumb over in Cairo, and I work with both consumer gardening questions in vegetables as well as small commercial growers in vegetables.
And what is your area of expertise, Chuck?
Yes, I work at a botanical gardens called the Dow Gardens. I've been there for 30 plus years. And we do, you know, every day is different there. We answer lots of consumer questions, but we're out there in the field also pulling weeds and in designing our beds. And so we get a little flavor of everything in the ornamental field.
All right, well, you can get involved with the program right now, giving us a call at 844-975-3343. We have plenty of phone experts ready to take your questions. You can also reach us on Facebook, facebook.com/AskTheSpecialists, and we are also on Twitter at WCMU_AskThe. All right, let's get to our first question that came in before the show. A question about something called Creeping Charlie, wondering how they can get rid of it. Apparently it's taken over most of this person's garden.
Okay, Creeping Charlie is a fairly invasive weed, and if they have perennials, they probably could use Roundup, which would be a dabber. Basically, it's like a sponge where you just rub it onto the plant or paint it onto the plant, and they may have to go back and treat it maybe 2-3 times for it to go. That's my thought on it. What do you think, Chuck?
Yeah, well, Creeping Charlie, one of the frustrations about Creeping Charlie is as it's going along the ground, it self-roots. And so when you spray it, you got to make sure you get, if you spray it with a herbicide, you got to make sure you cover the whole thing. And I agree with Hal. You got to hit Creeping Charlie 2 or 3 times. This is also a problem in people's lawn, and we're suggesting, Hal, is a fall application is the best time to get rid of Creeping Charlie and then hit him again in the spring. I know you have an expertise in lawn care, but it's especially a problem in shady areas, we find.
It's basically it's kind of known as a cemetery weed.
Okay.
And I would have to look to determine if there's anything that could be used to selectively take out Creeping Charlie in a lawn situation. That's often the challenge. You don't want to kill the grass while you're killing the weed.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yes.
All right. Well, our next question came in to us from Facebook, and this is a question about bindweed, so another weed affecting people's gardens and possibly their lawns. How do you get rid of that one, especially if it is mixed in with perennials?
Well, you guys are hitting us with the hard weeds. Yeah, definitely bindweed is another tough weed. It's a vine, and the problem with bindweed is the fact that the root system goes so deep. And so we mentioned Roundup before. Roundup is a systemic pesticide that goes in, and for it to go, you would once again have to hit that a couple times because we have to. The other thing is pull. and then pull it again, and then probably pull it a couple more times. So take your frustrations out on the weed.
In a vegetable garden situation, running a tiller, I have seen basically it gets a hold of the bindweed and keeps rotating right into the tiller. It can be a very tough one. Taking the hoe to get it out. And in a vegetable situation, it's difficult to treat here again, and may just have to use the hoe in that regard.
Yeah. All right. Well, our next question coming in from Byron this evening. This caller wants to know about the ash byproducts from wood-burning stoves, whether this is something that could be beneficial to spread on a garden.
I do know about wood ash. The answer is yes. Wood ashes from a fireplace or a wood-burning stove. It is important that the wood be pure, that it not have nails in it, screws or wires. And the wood ash, the number one content to it is calcium. And calcium is used to help raise the pH level. And so it's important that you soil test, you know what your pH level is. If you need lime, that could be a good choice to use wood ashes. And it does have a number of other components, micronutrients to it. Basically, the analysis of wood ash is 0-1-1, which would be 1% phosphorus, 1% potassium, and it would have no nitrogen in it.
Okay. And I guess that is an appropriate place to ask about testing your soil. Why is it beneficial to test your soil, and how exactly can you do that?
Yes, we recommend soil testing once every 3 years, and this is the Michigan State University Extension Home Lawn and Garden Soil Test mailer. Cost of it is $25. It is postage paid. It can be purchased from any extension office in Michigan, or it can be purchased from shopmsu.edu over online, I should say. And basically the soil test will tell the pH level, the calcium, magnesium, also the organic matter, and then we'll check for the phosphorus and the potassium levels, and then also make nitrogen recommendations. There's also a website. Once the lab completes the tests, then those are emailed back to the home owner, and there's also a website to refer to with questions there.
Okay. Our next question coming in from Reed City. Our first question of the night about moles. How do you get them out of your garden?
Do you want me to start with that one?
Go ahead.
Yeah. There's lots of theories on eliminating moles, and the one theory is to get rid of the grubs, and so put a grubs on it. Moles, let's even back up farther. Moles eat grubs and earthworms. They will not eat the roots of your plant. Okay, so the theory was, well, if you get rid of the grubs, you're going to get rid of the moles. Well, moles also eat earthworms, and so that isn't really been beneficial. Okay, the other thing about is using these peanuts, or bubble gum. There's all kinds of things out there. The peanuts. Moles, what we have found, moles have a very keen sense of smell, and so anything that they smell with the human is, and so if you do use the peanuts, we should have my wife do it, because she's very successful with using the peanuts, but
and how would you do that? What would you do with the peanuts?
She will not touch with her hands the peanut, the poison peanut, and she goes through all kinds of things, even wipes down the package and uses scissors, and drops it in there and into the mole hole. Mm-hmm. You stomp down the mole hole and make sure that you get a clean run. But in all actuality, most experts on moles, the best way is a mechanical trap to actually kill them. Yeah, and
Okay.
so that is probably the number one recommendation, is to go out and get a mechanical killing device.
I would agree. There's 3 types of traps. There's the harpoon trap, scissor trap, and a choker trap. The harpoon trap can be used for, actually 2 kinds of moles. There's a star-nosed mole, and they make like the volcanoes. And it's a large mound of soil, kind of looks like a mini volcano. And then the eastern mole makes kind of the patchwork quilt design. And the harpoon trap's probably, it's the one that can be used for both.
Okay. Our next question is coming in from Unionville, and it's a question about transitioning a garden from chemical to organic. Wondering what are some organic methods of controlling weeds and doing things like that?
Yes, I would say in transitioning, I would start in the fall. Basically, with the garden, the vegetables, get the after the garden's all spent, get the trash off the garden, so to speak, compost it ideally, and then I would recommend working the area and seeding down the green crop rye, cereal rye. And rye is a biofumigant. It helps to keep other weeds from growing and keeps the soil in place. And then when you get to the spring, at least 1 month in advance before you go to plant the garden, it's important to take the rye out. You don't want the rye getting away from you over 6 inches or so, because it can get hung up in the tiller. But anyway, it needs to be taken out early enough, and that's one method that I would recommend for managing for weed control.
And can I add there too, Hal, I think the use of mulches
Yes.
in the summertime instead of pesticides, definitely covering up that soil so that weed seeds don't germinate. Once the plants are up, using mulch. Those would be my recommendations. There's other recommendations, but I would say mulches will help that organic farmer keep down. So
Yes, that's excellent. And then the grass clippings is also a question. Don't use green clippings or those that have been treated by a herbicide from the lawn. You want good, clean clippings, and they need to be brown because the green ones will tie up the nitrogen.
Okay. A question coming in from Manistee about garden pests as well, specifically deer and rabbits. How do you keep them out of your garden?
Well,
you want to start out on that one? Or?
Sure, Chuck. There is a bulletin MSU has on deer barriers and wildlife that can be looked up online, and there's a number of things, including human hair, deer away, or hinder can be used. As far as with deer, those are the ones that I can think of right off.
Yeah, you know, those are repellents. And if you're going to use a repellent, you got to change repellents on a regular basis. The wildlife will get used to it. And so, and another thing is you kind of test them. What's good for you or might not be good for your neighbor and vice versa, okay? And so, and when watching Bambi, the show Bambi, root on the hunters during that show, so just to let you know. So, you know, deer is a concern of every gardener out there, you know, as well as rabbits. But the repellents, if you're going to use a repellent, my suggestion is to constantly be changing those because the animals, like
They'll get
Hell
used to
use human hair. Human hair does not work for us in the city. The deer are too used to the human smell. So, anyways, that would be my biggest suggestion.
All right. This question coming in from Ann Arbor. They have a situation in their yard where they have ash trees that are creating heavy shade, and they're wondering about how to grow grass under those trees.
Okay. In Michigan, there's 3 types of grass seed available: Kentucky bluegrass, perennial ryegrass, I'm talking for lawns, and then creeping red fescue. And of those, creeping red fescue is the main one that is more shade tolerant. The perennial rye and the Kentucky blue need full sunlight, and so using that type of grass to better establish underneath the trees may be a possibility. Also, take a look at the trees, see if there's some limbs that could be selectively removed to allow more sunlight to get in so the grass will grow better.
Yeah, they mentioned ash trees. I want to point out something about ash trees. First of all, ash trees have a very fibrous root system. And so the grass isn't only competing for the sunlight, but it's also competing for nutrients and other things with that type of root system. And so, they have another thing. To me, why fight yourself trying to grow grass? Grass, the ones that Hal mentioned, they're more tolerant of shade. That means that they would rather be in the sunlight. So why not look into ground covers, an alternative to grass that can compete better with not only the shade, but compete for the root system too. So that would be something for them to look into. We don't have to have grass in the whole yard, so.
Right.
So anyways.
Okay, this question comes in from Schwartz Creek, and 2 parts to this question. The first one is asking about downy mildew on squash, wondering if there's anything they can do to treat it before it occurs. And then they also were wondering about tomato blight and how you can prevent that.
Okay, actually with that 2-part question, the answer is very similar or very close to the same. Downy mildew, we've had that problem coming up into Michigan the last probably 4 or 5 years now. And there's one thing that, there is one fungicide that homeowners can use, and that's known as daconil or fungonil. It is, according to the label, it is applied every 7 to 10 days to help keep a disease down. And then with tomatoes, there's about 5 or 6 different diseases that tomatoes get, and daconil is the recommendation there as well, in every 7 to 10 days.
Okay. Our next question is coming in from Facebook, and this question is wondering, when is the best time in northern Michigan to plant peonies?
Chuck.
Peonies. Well, first of all, peonies are one of those perennials that are kind of tough to transplant, okay? So you're transplanting, and so I assume you're not going to buy them. Of course, you can buy peonies right now in the market, but the best time to do it would be late August into September. And even at that time, you might have to wait a couple years before you get the bloom. But the best time would be at that time of year to transplant a peony. Yep.
Okay. So far we've talked about moles, we've talked about deer and rabbits. What about skunks? How do you get rid of them?
That, of course, is a very difficult one. Personally, I kind of hope they go away, or I try to take my time, hope they go away. If there's something that they're eating or wanting, and oftentimes they're coming into the yard for grubs, so you may need to if you have a grub problem, treat for the grubs in the lawn. And then with skunks, there is a live catch trap that could be used, but the issue there, it gets into release, and there's regulations with the Department of Natural Resources that would need to be looked up and checked out so that they're handling that correctly. So that's what I can think of.
Skunks are becoming a bigger problem in the urban because we have created a habitat for them. They hide in drainage systems and such. But we do have a situation at the Dow Gardens, and we do live trap them. I would actually suggest a critter control type of people to come in and help you out on that, and
let them deal with the problem.
Let the professionals. That would be definitely my suggestion, is to let them trap them out.
Okay.
So
another question coming in from Facebook. This one is a case of somebody who has a 4-foot-tall dwarf Alberta spruce that was severely damaged over the winter. About a third of the tree is now browning. Can it be saved, and if so, how?
My suggestion on that, for the last 2 seasons, we've had a lot of what's called wind burn, and what happens, just to give a quick background, is the ground's frozen and the needles are still calling for water. Our grounds have been really frozen, and so the needles dry out, okay? My suggestion is kind of wait and see, because just because your needles are dried out doesn't mean your buds have been killed. Sometimes that happens, but wait until that new growth comes out. If it's still brown or you can't stand it in the middle of the summer, that's the time to make the decision. But a lot of these Alberta spruces will come back from that needle burn. Unfortunately, we've seen a couple winters with really bad winter burn, and so it does weaken the tree. But I'm guessing a 6-foot Alberta spruce is a pretty old Alberta spruce. I'm guessing that will return to life. Okay. So,
Just a couple comments I would say. If that spruce is close to the road and the road's fairly well traveled, there may be salt spray that has come off of the road, and it kind of forms this haze that will go land on the spruce and pines. And then if all else fails, we also have the Plant and Pest Diagnostic Lab at MSU. Samples can be taken, and they can sort out exactly what it is under the microscope.
Okay. A question that many gardeners probably ask themselves: what is the right time to water your garden?
For watering purposes, typically the morning would be a pretty good time. You may get a difference of opinion here with Chuck. I don't know, it'd be interesting to hear what he has to say, but morning, when you get into the afternoon, the temperatures in the summer rise and you're just evaporating off the water. If you get too late into the evening, the issue then becomes having water on the plant foliage and then trouble with the disease cycle. And I'm interested to hear when you water the plants at Dow.
Well, you ready for the sarcastic answer? When they're dry. You water them when they're dry, right? So, in fact, most people do overwater their lawns. We're overwatering. We're lucky here in Michigan that we have plenty of water, but we are definitely overwatering things. So, sarcastically, I'm going to say when they're dry, but in all honesty, that's when you do it. The question is, when we do it we have an automatic system, and so we do it in the evening, and we are concerned about the disease and such. But for the most, sometimes we have to go back and redo it, and we do it in the day. And for the most part, the foliage is dry, quickly if the plant needs that water, you know. So, but we try to avoid the evenings. And when I say evenings, you know, 7 o'clock and later. But if your plant needs water, plant water. It's better to water it then than and worry about the diseases later.
All right, and one final quick question, just a few seconds to answer this one. Best non-toxic way to treat grubs? About 30 seconds here.
Let your moles go at it. How's that non-toxic way?
I would say we have been recommending through MSU Extension the importance of mowing high, and that when I talk high, setting the deck at 3.5 to 4 inches. You want a nice dense turf and to be able to choke out the weeds. And then also you get more root growth that way, and the grubs are feeding on the roots, and so it would help to fight it off. So I would say mow high.
Yeah,
Okay.
and you know, I just real quick, grubs do have peaks and valleys, and so you know maybe you won't have that problem next year, and just keep your lawn healthy.
All right. Well, that is all the time we have for this evening, a very quick half hour. Thank you both for your
Thank you,
time
Mike.
this
Thank
evening. Thanks for all your help answering these questions. We would also like to thank our phone volunteers, Kay Hemmerlein, Gary Kramer, Belinda Laughlin, and Amy Pullman. Thank you to them. A reminder, you can find answers to the questions we didn't get a chance to ask on air on our Facebook page, facebook.com/askthespecialist tomorrow. This is our final episode of the season, so thank you to our student crew that helps out every single week here at CMU Public Broadcasting. There they are now on your screen, many of them graduating seniors, so congratulations to them as well. They're all from CMU's School of Broadcast and Cinematic Arts. And thank you to you as well for joining us this evening. We will be back next fall with another all-new season of Ask the Specialists. For everybody here at CMU Public Television, I'm Mike Horace. Thanks for joining us. Have a great summer and a great night.
Thank you.